My name is Sophia Jensen. I'm 36 years old, living in Charleston, South Carolina, and I had been married for 12 years to Daniel, a man who prided himself on his strategic mind and a work schedule so busy he forgot his own wife's birthday. On Tuesday afternoon at exactly 2:46 p.m., as I was finishing a client report, my phone buzzed gently. A notification popped up from our shared family cloud, something that rarely happened since Daniel usually controlled all tech access. I didn't think much of it until I saw the synced email title. Booking confirmation from Ocean Spirit Cruises, Platinum Suite, Couples Spa Package, Private Dinner. I froze. The email wasn't addressed to me. It had auto-synced into our shared folder because Daniel had once used that account to book a flight, years ago. I opened the email and quietly read every detail. 7-day Caribbean cruise, departing from Miami on March 14th. Guest 1, Daniel Jensen. Guest 2, Amanda Carter. No need to search, I knew exactly who Amanda Carter was. Light brown hair, flirty smile, and that red dress she wore to our Christmas party last year. Introduced to me as the newly hired project manager at Daniel's firm. She stood in my kitchen, took a glass of red wine from my hand, and looked at me with an expression I now recognized. Not indifference, but pity. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't even cry. A cold chill crept up from my spine, freezing every nerve. I scrolled to the end of the email where it listed their cabin number. 9242. Deck 11, ocean facing, along with a massage appointment and a romantic dinner booking, scheduled on the exact day Daniel claimed he'd be giving a keynote presentation at a conference in Seattle. And then another notification appeared, a photo upload from the cloud. It was a selfie taken in a changing room. Amanda stood in front of the mirror wearing black lace lingerie, the tag still hanging, lips painted bright red, smiling wide. The caption hit like a punch to the gut. Can't wait for you to take this off me, counting down the hours, baby. My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped a fist around my lungs. I stared at the screen, a single question ringing in my mind. Why me? Why am I the one being betrayed? Then I remembered something that stopped me from hurling the phone across the room. Just last month at a charity gala, I had overheard Amanda gushing to someone about her fiancé, a tech entrepreneur named Ethan Moore, who was preparing to expand his company into Texas. I remembered how she waved her hand to show off her engagement ring, bragging about their pre-wedding romantic getaway this spring. I immediately opened my laptop and typed Amanda Carter into social media. Her profile was public, flooded with couple photos and captions like, soulmate, blessed, bride. And there he was, Ethan Moore, his face familiar. I had seen him briefly at a networking event in January, giving a polished speech about innovation and scale. One of her most recent posts, from 3 days ago, made my breath hitch. I'm heading on a solo cruise to recharge before the wedding chaos begins. Ocean Spirit, here I come! The cruise dates matched perfectly. But instead of falling apart, something inside me clicked into focus. I had done enough of that before. No more. I stared at Amanda's engagement photos with Ethan again. Not to confirm the betrayal, but to study his face. He was sharp, calm, articulate. I remembered seeing him at a digital transformation summit in October, commanding the room like it was built for him. Founder of Helix Quant, a rising tech firm out of Austin, Texas. I didn't hesitate long. 12 years in a marriage I thought was stable had taught me one thing. When the truth surfaces, you either collapse or you rise and act. I chose the latter. I opened LinkedIn, found Ethan Moore's public profile, and with just a few clicks, I had his company email. I began typing, concise, cold, void of emotion. Mr. Meyer, I believe we need to discuss something urgent regarding your fiancée Amanda Carter and my husband Daniel Jensen. I've recently received a cruise confirmation for a joint booking between them, scheduled the same time you mentioned a solo trip. Attached is a screenshot of the email and a photo you likely haven't seen. If you're available, I propose a brief meeting at Oak House Cafe on Queen Street, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I attached one image. Amanda, in lingerie, with the caption, counting down the hours. No accusations, no venom, just facts, delivered plainly. I hit send, then I sat staring at the screen, waiting for those little gray dots that signal someone's reading. 5 minutes later his reply arrived. "I'll be there at 9, Ethan." The next morning when I walked into Oak House, Ethan Moore was already there, seated in the corner with an espresso in front of him. He looked exactly as I remembered, except now his eyes had lost that confident sheen. When I sat down, he didn't bother with small talk. "You were right," he said. "Amanda told me she was traveling alone to de-stress before the wedding." I nodded and slid the printed email and photo packet across the table. Ethan scanned them, his hands tightening with every page. He didn't curse. He didn't explode. But his lips drew tight. Bloodless. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, voice low and stripped of formality. I looked him straight in the eye. "I've already booked a single cabin on their cruise, cabin 9244, right next to 9242, but I think 2 witnesses would be better than 1. What do you say?" Ethan leaned back slightly, eyes drifting to the window. Then he turned back with the faintest of smiles, the first sign of life since I walked in. "We're getting on that ship," he said, "and I think it's time they know what it feels like to be watched, cornered, and completely out of control." I didn't smile back, but something stirred in my chest. Not relief, not anger, clarity. Less than 2 hours after that meeting, we had both secured our tickets. Ocean Spirit Cruise, cabins 9243 and 9244. 2 rooms, side by side with theirs. I used my private credit card, the one Daniel never monitored. Ethan booked his under a personal leisure account. We agreed on a cover story, 2 old college friends who happened to reconnect after more than 10 years and decided to take a spontaneous vacation together that week to relive old memories. It was just believable enough not to raise suspicion, and vague enough that no one would bother to question it. We didn't have a grand plan yet, just presence. We would show up in the right place at the right moment, making it impossible for them to run. "How do you think Amanda will react when she sees me on the deck?" Ethan asked as we stepped out of the cafe. I squinted. "Depends. Is she as quick with excuses as she is with picking lingerie?" Ethan let out a short but genuine laugh, then nodded. "I'm looking forward to that moment." We walked away. 2 strangers with one shared mission, no romance, no expectations, just 2 betrayed people, preparing to stage a scene their partners never saw coming. 3 days after our meeting at Oak House, I stood in Ethan's temporary apartment in Savannah, looking at 5 dresses lined up neatly on the bed. I felt a strange calm I hadn't known before. Not the numb kind that comes with giving up, but the sharp focus of someone stepping onto a stage, knowing every line and where the spotlight will hit. We had worked non-stop. Ethan, just as I predicted, was methodical. He printed out the full itinerary for the Ocean Spirit cruise, mapped out the cabin layout, check-in times, island excursion schedules, even the locations of the spa, restaurants, and bars Daniel and Amanda had selected. He organized everything in a color-coded Excel sheet. Blue for potential contact points, red for areas to avoid, yellow for strategic appearances. I handled the rest: wardrobe, body language, facial expressions, and the subtle details that would sell our cover. We need to look like old friends catching up, close but not clingy, relaxed but not too affectionate. If we get it right, our presence alone will shake them, and they won't know how to respond, I said as I handed Ethan a folder of edited photos. I'd created in Photoshop fake college pictures of the 2 of us, with my hair cropped short and flared jeans. Ethan tilted his head, smiling. "You're planning this like a director staging her own life." I answered calmly, "Because that's exactly what I'm doing." We agreed to check in an hour apart and appear separately on the first day to avoid raising suspicion. My cabin, 9244, was to the left of Daniel's. Ethan's, 9243, was on the right. Perfect, like 2 blades pressed to either side of their necks. I brought 5 dresses, each one selected for a specific scenario: a beach stroll, a fine dining dinner, a cocktail party, a guided island tour, and a full-length black satin gown for formal night. Daniel hadn't seen any of them. Each piece was chosen to present a stronger, more unshakable version of myself. The woman he no longer had control over. Ethan was no less prepared. He purchased a new tuxedo for formal night and 3 crisp white dress shirts perfectly pressed. He had the kind of look that could make Amanda stumble with just one glance, and I knew he'd use it to our advantage. We even rehearsed reaction lines. If Daniel ran into me at a restaurant, I'd feign light surprise, not angry, not broken, just a raised brow. Well, what a coincidence. You're here too? If Amanda saw Ethan at the bar, he'd lean back with a half smile. Fate? Or did you forget your schedule again? We even recorded voice memos to practice tone and delivery for those velvet dagger moments. Sharp lines they couldn't refute, but that would leave them stripped bare. I had also prepared things Daniel never knew I had. Bank statements, restored text histories from our cloud, and a running document of every lie he'd told over the past year. Not to play the victim, but to be ready with undeniable evidence at the precise moment it mattered. Ethan had his own files. He contacted a former college friend who now worked in Amanda's IT department and retrieved GPS logs, flagged charges on company credit cards, and internal reports showing Amanda had used corporate funds for unauthorized purchases. He said, "I'm not doing this for revenge. I want her to understand that trust isn't something you bargain with." The night before departure, we met at a small riverside wine bar. We were no longer just the betrayed. We were people who had taken back control and were about to walk into a battleground we had drawn ourselves. "You ready for this?" Ethan asked, raising a glass of whiskey. I looked out at the lights shimmering on the water, then back at him. Ready for everything, but not just to expose them. To reclaim my life. He nodded. Good, because after this trip, nothing will be the same. I smiled, not the kind of smile that comes from joy, but the kind worn by someone who knows exactly what's coming and isn't afraid. The first day aboard the Ocean Spirit began under a flawless blue sky with a cool sea breeze sweeping across the deck as if unaware that 4 lives were about to collide in a storm. Daniel and Amanda boarded around 10 a.m., according to a crew member I'd befriended earlier. Ethan and I checked in separately on Deck 11, 15 minutes apart. We weren't in a hurry, no need to rush, let them savor the last sweetness of their little parallel world. By the afternoon, it was time to move. The first stop, Harbor Key, a private island owned by the cruise line, was the perfect setting for an accidental encounter. Golden sunlight poured across the white sand, and lounge chairs lined the shore facing the sea. I wore a cobalt blue swimsuit with a sheer mesh wrap, my hair was tied high, retro sunglasses perched on my nose. Ethan waited at the coconut drink bar, shirt slightly unbuttoned, dark shades on, radiating enough chill to make the bartender forget to smile. We chose our chairs, right in front of Daniel and Amanda, 2 rows away, close enough to strike. And the lightning came, quicker than I expected. Daniel was carrying 2 vibrant cocktails back from the bar. As he walked past me, I looked up just as sunlight filtered through the palm leaves, casting a dazzling glow across my face. He froze like a man struck by lightning in the middle of summer. I smiled, softly, as if greeting an old acquaintance at the grocery store. I even raised a hand and waved. "Seattle looks different, doesn't it?" I said, just loud enough to rise above the crashing waves. The glasses in his hands trembled, orange liquor trailing down his wrist. His eyes widened, jaw clenched. Not a word, not even a breath. I stood up, adjusted my dress strap and walked toward him, my feet sinking into the sand, each step cutting through the years of blind trust. "Quite the coincidence, Daniel. The last time you lied to me, you were on a business trip to Seattle, remember? And now?" "Amanda..." I stopped right in front of him. No shouting, just words, sharp enough to sting. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it. I had never seen Daniel speechless. A voice behind me, cold and weighty, broke the silence. "Aren't you going to introduce him, Amanda?" I didn't need to turn. I knew Ethan was standing there. Amanda spun around, and when she saw him, her face drained of color. She stuttered, lips dry, tugging her sarong as if it could shield her from the fallout. "Ethan, I thought you were in Texas." Ethan didn't respond. He handed her a printed document. She glanced at it and went pale. I didn't need to read it. I knew exactly what it was. A receipt for the cruise booking under Daniel Jensen's name, paid with a corporate credit card from the company where Daniel served as an executive. I turned to Daniel, my voice even. "A company card, Daniel? Altura Global's card?" The one I helped you get approved for business expenses? Turns out it's pretty useful for booking ocean view suites, with couples massages no less. His face flushed red, ready to argue. But I cut in. Don't deny it. I called Altura's accounting team before I left Charleston. And Ethan? He's already spoken with Helix Quant's finance department. Seems like your little romance didn't just wreck a marriage, it bankrupted corporate ethics. Amanda turned to Ethan, her eyes filling with tears. It's not what you think. He scoffed. Not what I think? Amanda, you left a trail clearer than a treasure map. Around us, a few beachgoers had started to notice. A couple to my left even removed their sunglasses for a better view. I adjusted my strap and tilted my head. Such a shame, your secret honeymoon kicking off with an audience. I turned without waiting for a reply. Ethan walked beside me, shoulder to shoulder. Silent, but his eyes mirrored mine, calm, calculating. This was just the beginning. After that first beach encounter, none of us were the same. Daniel avoided eye contact like it burned. Amanda looked like a pale version of herself, no lipstick, no confidence. But Ethan and I, we were alert, composed, and meticulous, like two performers staging a 5-day show. On day 2, we accidentally appeared at the spa just as they arrived for their couples treatment. The receptionist, whom I'd gifted a little something the day before, politely informed them the couples suite had been reassigned due to a system glitch. Amanda was led to a private room, Daniel to the men's section. Ethan and I strolled past the hallway hand in hand, smiles soft and vague enough to drive someone mad. That afternoon, they joined a kayaking tour around Coraline Island. So did we. We didn't sit close, just close enough for Daniel to see me laughing with another man, sunlight bouncing off the water. Amanda kept glancing over her shoulder. Neither of them could focus on the experience. By night 3, the rooftop restaurant hosted a wine and seafood tasting. Ethan ordered a bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet. I wore a deep red velvet backless dress, the exact shade Daniel once called too bold for someone as quiet as you. I wore it because of that. We sat 2 tables away, close enough to hear Amanda hiss. I feel like we're being watched, Daniel. Why are they everywhere? He whispered back, barely containing his irritation. Shut up, don't make a scene. I clinked glasses with Ethan, eyes fixed on the unraveling mess across the room. Night 4 was the formal gala, the cruise's grandest event. Champagne flowed, a live band played. Amanda wore a silver bodycon dress, hair in a high bun, clinging to whatever confidence she had left. Daniel, stiff in his tux, sat next to her at a table for 2 front row, just as their reservation email had described. We arrived 10 minutes late. I wore a long black satin gown, deep V-neck, hair loose, makeup bolder than usual. Ethan beside me, sharp in his tailored suit. We mingled, shook hands, laughed with familiar faces from wine night, unaware they were part of an orchestrated collapse. As dinner began, I gave a subtle nod to the sound tech, someone I'd accidentally shown some interesting photos to. A voice boomed from the mic. Before the dancing begins, we have a special surprise for 2 of our guests, to honor their 18-month journey together. I tilted my head and smiled. On the LED screen behind the stage, photos began to appear. Daniel and Amanda at a resort in Mexico last June. At a ski resort in Colorado last January. At a restaurant in the Bahamas last September. All were security camera images I collected when Daniel still used the same travel agency's loyalty account. A few murmurs spread through the room. Daniel shot up. Turn it off. But before anyone could react, the final image appeared, a screenshot of Amanda's engagement post, her beaming beside Ethan, the diamond ring dazzling under the caption, "Officially his, can't wait for forever." Date posted, 4 months after the Mexico trip, which meant she was still hand in hand with Daniel. The entire ballroom fell silent, as if someone had sucked the sound out of the air. Amanda froze, her lips trembling. Daniel looked around, face pale as if he'd just been slapped. Ethan stood, his voice calm. She never canceled our engagement, she just ran 2 lives in parallel and 2 bank accounts. I followed, lifting a champagne glass. We're not here to humiliate anyone, just to clarify, down to the photos, the dates, the footprints. What you thought were secrets were just unverified data. No applause, no laughter, but I could feel the gazes. Not curious anymore, but reassessing the entire narrative. Daniel grabbed Amanda's hand, trying to leave. Before they turned, I gently placed a USB drive on their table. A few voice recordings, in case your memories get selective. They left wordlessly, and that night, as Ethan and I danced under the chandeliers, every spotlight seemed to converge on us. But we didn't need light. The truth was the brightest spotlight of all. The next morning, I woke to the soft crash of waves against the ship, and sunlight seeping through the cabin curtains. But unlike every other morning during my marriage, I woke up fully awake. No illusions. No hesitation. I put on a simple white dress, tied my hair up, then walked to Ethan's cabin to carry out the final part of our plan. On his table lay a navy leather album, silver embossed, A Journey to Remember, Ocean Spirit, 2024. I flipped through the pages, distant shots of Daniel and Amanda, at the spa, on deck, at the wine tasting by the beach. None too revealing, but every expression captured rising tension, confusion, fear. Amanda, with her back turned, crying. Daniel gripping his wine glass, head down. Sitting half a meter apart in the dining hall, surrounded by laughter from other tables. I handed the album to Ethan. He nodded, then called Luca, one of the cruise photographers, someone we'd treated to coffee along with a generous tip. Luca promised to deliver the album personally to cabin 9242 around lunchtime. Subtle. At 1:15 p.m., Ethan and I stood down the hall, 2 cabins from theirs. We clearly saw the attendant knock and hand Daniel the sleek, shrink-wrapped package. The door closed. We couldn't hear words, but minutes later the yelling started. Quiet at first, then louder. Something crashed, glass shattered, Amanda screamed. "You promised, you said no one would ever know." Ethan looked at me, his voice even. "We're not done yet." At 3 p.m., the ship's intercom came on. "Would passengers Daniel Jensen and Amanda Carter please report to the management office on Deck 2 regarding travel expense inquiries?" Not accusatory, not harsh, but enough to make everyone turn and whisper. Ethan and I waited in the hallway on Deck 2 as they exited the elevator. Daniel's shirt was rumpled, his eyes downcast. Amanda wore sunglasses, but they didn't hide the panic. Inside the office, a representative from Altura Global, the company Daniel worked for, was already there. I had sent them every receipt, email, and reservation detail. Spa vouchers, suite upgrades, charges to the corporate card. All aligned with the days Daniel had claimed to be at conferences. Amanda, on the other hand, received a notice from Helix Quant's finance assistant. Her system access was locked and her account frozen pending a review of her personal spending through the startup. Ethan had submitted his analysis to the board 3 days earlier, and it had just detonated. We stood outside in plain view through the glass, letting them see us. I watched Daniel lift his head. No anger this time. Only what I had once seen in my own eyes the night I found the yacht email. Collapse. When the ship docked in Miami the next morning, I waited by the gangway, holding a small beige envelope. Daniel arrived late. He looked drained, shirt wrinkled, suitcase dragging behind. Amanda had disembarked an hour earlier. I handed him the envelope. He didn't take it at first, but eventually accepted it, as if he already knew what was inside. I spoke clearly. "The divorce papers are ready. The court will mail the official copy to the attorney's office. All accounts have been separated. The Charleston house was rekeyed on Monday. Your belongings are at Harborview Hotel, room 604. I booked it a week ago." Daniel looked at me, his eyes empty. Not because he couldn't guess, but because there was nothing left to hold on to. I walked away, without looking back. Behind me, Ethan was waiting, holding a cup of coffee and a canvas tote bag embroidered with the Ocean Spirit logo. He handed me a pair of sunglasses and said softly, "Well, that's the end of a chapter." Put on the glasses and smiled. "And now, it's the start of another one." 6 months later, I was making coffee in the sunlit kitchen of my new apartment, a seaside unit in Wilmington, North Carolina. From the 6th-floor balcony, I could see sails gliding across the horizon each morning, and hear the waves crashing like the steady heartbeat of a life I was rebuilding from scratch. I no longer lived in the shadow of 12 years of marriage. I no longer woke up to lifeless messages like late meeting or don't wait for dinner. My days now began in silence, without deception, without compromise, and without needing anyone's permission to simply breathe. I sat down, opened my laptop, and checked my schedule. My small brand consulting business, the same one Daniel once scoffed at as a temporary whim, now had 3 steady clients and a young assistant working remotely. Every contract I signed was proof. I was no longer the woman behind someone else's success. I stood on my own terms. My phone buzzed, a message from Ethan. Just landed. Lunch at Mason's like always? I smiled and replied with one word, yes. We met at the end of each month, without fail, not to relieve the days of revenge, but to share what had changed, and to remind each other that we made it through what once seemed impossible. Ethan looked lighter than he had on the last day aboard the ship. His hair was shorter, his smile more relaxed. His company, Helix Quant, had just opened a new satellite office in Raleigh, and he'd decided to temporarily move there for 6 months. I told him about a branding project I'd just landed with a natural cosmetics company, and he shared how one of Amanda's former investors had reached out to him, after learning the former CFO was now facing 3 federal charges for embezzling corporate funds. The trial hasn't started, but according to the lawyer, even a suspended sentence is a long shot, Ethan said casually. And Daniel? After an internal investigation, he was demoted to the market analysis division, relocated from Manhattan to a small branch office in Charlotte. An internal restriction from Altura barred him from using any corporate expense accounts for the next 3 years. According to Caroline, my former friend who still kept in touch with a few of Daniel's old colleagues, he now lived alone in a rented apartment, quiet, and no longer invited to high-profile events. I had returned every wedding gift, every memory photo, and anything that no longer belonged to me, not because I wanted him to remember, but because I didn't want anything left that would make me remember him. After lunch, we walked along the beach, where seagulls perched on the rail like quiet guardians of the sea. Ethan suddenly spoke, his hand brushing a small velvet box inside his coat pocket. Last week, Ocean Spirit sent me a promo email, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Thinking of another cruise? I looked out. The dark blue water glittered under the sun. 6 months ago, the ocean was where everything fell apart. Now, it offered something else. With the caption, "What if we went, just as friends, no pretending closeness, no script." I paused for a moment, then nodded. I'm in, as long as this time our room isn't next to anyone else's. Ethan laughed. Scout's honor. That night I lay on the sofa, a steaming cup of tea in hand, reflecting on all I had gone through. The pain, the fury, the betrayal, then the rebuilding, the independence, and finally, the rebirth. I don't call it a victory, because what I regained wasn't dominance. It was the right to live by my own values. The truth hurt, but it also freed me. Not just from a toxic marriage, but from the shell I had wrapped myself in for over a decade. On the side table near the window, sunlight streamed across an electronic ticket that read, Ocean Spirit New Year's Journey, Cabin 1301. I would board again, not to expose anyone, not to get revenge. I was going for peace, to begin a new year, with myself. Sophia's story is a powerful reminder that betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can be the start of freedom. When the truth came out, she didn't spiral or seek blind revenge. She rose with calm and clarity. In a world where so many remained silent, Sophia chose to reclaim her voice, her dignity, and her life. In real life, her story proves this. The truth may hurt, but it's also the shortest path to healing and liberation. What do you think about how Sophia faced betrayal and rebuilt her life? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about love, family, and life's most meaningful lessons.